Now I've got my Mosquito out, taking it and pulled it apart. Comes with this nipple, which I'm going to screw into the base. And run my wires through. Could have done this ahead of time before I pulled the wires off as well. And then you'll notice on the base, right here, that's where we plug in either our 15 volt or 24 volt power supply. Now the difference being, I don't have a chip right here. So if I don't have a chip right here, then I have to use a 15 volt power supply. If we've got the right chip in there, then we can use a 24 volt power supply. But either way, even though it says 15 volt, we can use up to a 16.5 volt if necessary. And because it's AC, it doesn't matter which is the positive and which is the negative. Sometimes I bend these over backwards, or if you can use some solder to make these a little better connection. Then I will slip them in the holes. And I'm going to use my handy dandy screwdriver and my handy dandy Leatherman. To screw the leads in.
Why don't you call me back when you can, or later, or if you have any questions. I'm just checking in to make sure you're okay. You got everything right. Okay, great.
Any jeweler's screwdriver should work fine. I also noticed that this is where we would plug in our trigger, being our motion sensor. And this would be the trigger ports, and that would be the power out to the PIR. Again, this is where our chip goes. And then here's our settings. Right here we have our 5 switches that are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Switches 4 and 5 are what control the decibel level. Right now I don't have a chip input, and so I will not have the extra high power loud settings. So if I have both of these set to closed, then I will be at 84 decibels. If I open number 5, I go to 86. If I close 5 and open 4, I will be at 90 decibels. If I open both, I am now at 94 decibels. You add about 10 decibels per setting if you go in and put in the chip for loud. Number 3 tells us that there's going to be an audible beep. So if I have that closed as it is now, as the Mosquito is going off, for those that can't hear it, there will be an audible beep so that people can tell that can't hear it that it's on, but we usually leave that turned off. Number 2 takes us between high frequency and low frequency. Right now I'm open, and so set open is high frequency. That's for just teens up to about 25. And if I close that, then that is set so that anybody can hear it. I've now got the device turned on. For me, I can't really hear it right now. It's also pointed at the table. Some people might be able to hear that now. But if I switch it to the low frequency, now I can hear it. Now you'll notice that pin 1 is set to open. If I change that to closed, it's going to sound a different length of time. And that's with the chip out. I'll demonstrate in a moment with the chip in what the difference is. These are the chips that can be installed to change some of the options on the Mosquito. You'll notice this chip has a blue stripe. Blue stripe sets it to continuous running, so instead of being on for 20 minutes and then turned off automatically, and that would happen per activation on something like a motion sensor, the blue line means that the unit is always on. We've gone to a higher powered and much more expensive speaker now, so that the unit will not have any issues with playing continuously. This one does not have a blue line, but it has a red line and a green line. The green allows the unit to be used worldwide. If it did not have a green, it would only be usable in the US. The red line is the loud setting, so that is what increases the decibel level by 10 per setting on sets 4 and 5 dip switch. When installing the chips, you'll notice that there's a dot in the corner. It'll be on one of the corners, upper right corner when you're looking at it, and it also has the indentation on the side here. But when we take a look at this, we want to match that up, the dent here, to match up with the dent here. This is pin 1 up here. You'll see it says 1 on the motherboard there, and that's where we want to put the little circles on that side. So we're going to carefully, with our electrostatic wristbands on, place this chip in. And push down firmly. Once that is in, and now if I plug in the power supply, now it beeps once and then turns off because I have setting 1 turned off. So it's not currently beeping. Now if I want to broadcast, I can turn that on. Now I'm on continuous. And again, because I have 2 sets closed, I am on the low frequency. I can switch that to high frequency, and it doesn't hurt my ears nearly as bad, but it would definitely be bothering some teenagers. And then again, I can, now with the blue chip in, I can set dip switch number 1 to closed, and the device stops broadcasting. Most likely these chips will be pre-installed. Just let us know what options you want. I'm now going to demonstrate the closing of the case. Your box should come with 4 long screws, as well as a couple of shorter screws. If I take and pull my cable taut through my lower casing, make sure all the wires are inside, and then I place that over the unit. You'll notice that the nipple's coming out the bottom here. I want to look at my flanges at the top and make sure that they're pointed down towards the lip. That way we can mount it on the wall like this, so that the sound will be forced down, but we can keep water out of the nipple. I can then drop these long screws in, and tighten them down using the appropriate hex screwdriver. Mosquito comes with a mounting kit, several screws, bolts, locking washers, and brackets. I can directly mount this to the wall through these 2, or I can use the mounting bracket if I want to slightly change the angle based on the height that I have the device mounted at. There's my locking washers. I've got long screws and short screws. Use the long screws on the device to the bracket. I can now take the mounting bracket, use the holes that are provided. This hole, a lot of times we would take and possibly run this cable through and into the wall if we drilled a hole in the wall, and we might use these to mount it to the wall or to a pole. If you are mounting directly to a wall, you'll notice that there is a punch out here that you can punch out so that you can run your cables directly through the wall instead of down through the nipple, so that you can have a more secure setup without having to worry about somebody trying to stick a branch in and damage the wires.